Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So much correspondence said,
having me.
one of the reasons we're looking forward to having Ken back on is that he chortles like no one else. There he is, and he's off and running.
You're good company, boys, I must say.
Is that right?
It is, it's true. It's true, I cannot tell a lie.
Is one of the reasons for the smile across the side of your face, across the front of your face, obviously?
Can smile across the side of his face?
Yes, across the side. In fact, from one side to the other.
Interesting. Can I just... sorry to interrupt you. When I played Henry V 1,000 years ago, one of the things that the historical archivists said was that he had a scar on the side of his face, which meant from the side as though it looked as though he was smiling all the time. And it was a very effective appearance for a ruler.
Very good.
For what it's
good.
worth. Historical anecdote there.
He has already raised the tone of the programme.
That's right. And if anyone is just going to drop in a Shakespearean anecdote, it's going to be Ken Branagh. Can I just say, right, before we get into talk about Cinderella, now, I'm going to finish the thought. The reason for the smile on your face from ear to ear is because Cinderella opening weekend, $132.5 million, huge box office success, so congratulations.
Thank you very, very much.
So why are you even here promoting it when you frankly don't need to?
Oh, no. Well, I'm always happy to be here. I was saying to you on it, I'm going to say it live, that we've all been doing this for a long time now, and maybe a lot of the listeners out there have also been, thank God, listening and seeing and doing and hearing some of the things we do. And I'm very grateful for the long-term conversation, which is across some of the movies that haven't worked so well and haven't opened to $132 million. And so it's nice to keep the conversation going in the good commercial ones, the good times, the bad times, whatever you might like.
Did the Magic Flute not take $132 million in its opening weekend?
I'm still counting, Mark, and I think it may be 132 pence at the moment, but I think it's looking to improve its. But if
the Magic Flute doesn't have them queuing around the block, you say, okay, well, it's the Magic Flute. We did it's a noble film, and obviously it wasn't going to be number one. But when you're doing a movie, you have the responsibility of doing a Disney Cinderella live action kind of remake of the 1950. If you haven't got a number, people are going to start asking questions. So there must be a huge sense of relief now.
The relief, I cannot tell a lie. It is a great relief. But of course, the numbers game, I think, is you can get a bit too tied up with. What that represents is people are going to see the movie, and that's what's important to me, is that there's an audience at the other end of it, because that's what completes the work, and that's what means that instead of just looking at figures, you now bump into people who've actually seen it. You bump into little girls and little boys and grown-up girls and boys who've seen the movie and for whom it means something. And you get surprised by, for instance, a little gal the other night, she'd seen it, I guess she was about 7. I said, did you enjoy it? I loved the film, and what did you like? I liked the moment when Cinderella was crying, very upset, but then the old lady came and asked if she could have a glass of milk, and Cinderella gave it to her straight away, and she completely forgot that she was upset, and I thought that was very nice of her. Well, you can't sort of legislate for how things are going to... But I found that very touching and very affecting. And every time I hear... just bumped into one of your distinguished colleagues earlier who said that they'd taken their daughter to see it. I get hugely excited when I think that people are taking their kids to see this film. I think... because it touches on important things, and you just hope those kids are going to have a good time like we had, or at least I had good times seeing fairy tales in the cinema when we were kids.
Now, do you remember last time you came in, we asked you if you were hungry, and you said you'd like some chocolate, and we got you some chocolate, and we got you a 2-fingered chocolate treat, but you only ate one of them.
Is it still? Oh, it's still.
There it is.
Thank you
there
very
it is.
much.
Just so there's the second one, just in case you feel the need to munch.
I think we can say Twix, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Mark has given me the second finger. That's what I was going to say.
I think a 2-fingered treat sounds a lot worse than saying we're giving you a Twix.
Frankly, I'm with you on that one.
But frankly, when you've taken 132 million, you can buy your own.
Exactly, buy your own Twix. I'm going to see if Disney will get me the other half of that.
So when you were given the gig, when you were asked to take the gig, did you instinctively know the kind of Cinderella that you wanted to make? Because clearly the movie knows exactly what it wants to do.
Well, I was surprised and delighted to be asked about it. I thought a fairy tale and with women absolutely at the centre of it was a good and interesting surprise for me. And as always, it then depended on the script. And so I read the script by Chris Weitz, a writer with whom I'd worked prior to this on a movie we never got made, but we had a great relationship. He's a director, an excellent director, and a funny man, really witty and dry. But he was headed in the direction of a rather heartfelt tale, which was, although funny and humorous and wry, not cynical and not sort of postmodern. It's not stepping out of the movie at any time to point at the characters and say they're silly, or fairy tales are silly, or we're all silly for watching it. It starts with the idea that Cinderella, in this happy, functioning, loving family, is instructed by her mama to think about the idea of having courage and being kind as a way of getting you through some of life's bumps. And we started from there and thought, can we cast someone who can convey that? And can that message, that sincere message that it's nice to be nice, be also involve a little wit and a little bit of fun and a little bit of sexiness and a little bit of intelligence? And we thought that it could. So we started from there. And that seemed like a real piece of revision in the center of the story that often sees her as passive, a victim, woman waits for man to rescue her. That was not something we wanted to do.
Obviously, the key bit, a lot of important casting to be sorted out. Tell us about your Cinderella.
Lily James is our Cinderella. You will have seen her as Lady Rose on TV's Downton Abbey, and she came in originally to read for one of the stepsisters. Lucy Bevan, our excellent casting director, noticed that she had blonde hair, which she was using for Lady Rose, and the Cinderella of it all started nudging into her imagination. And I heard her speak first. The voice, given, it always struck me that most of us hear fairy tales for the first time as people read them to us. Our parents read it. So a voice in a fairy tale becomes crucial. Hers, like Helena Bonham Carter, who narrates a lot of the film as the fairy godmother, have warm and intelligent and musical and richly toned voices. Indeed, these two sexy boys yourselves have these very things.
Sarah did that. Now with putty in his hand.
I just suddenly realised I'm in the world of the listening world. But when it came to Lily, she had that, and then she had a sense of fun all the way through a long process, which probably included 5, 6, 7 auditions, readings, screen tests, working with Richard Madden, her soon-to-be screen prince. And then, and through that process over a number of months, she seemed as though she could retain this sense of play that the character needed as well. And all of that, combined with this amazing experience from Downton, seemed as though she'd be able to carry the responsibility of playing the character and have fun with it. It was crucial that she have fun so that we could.
How many auditions did you have then?
Well, I guess it was probably 7 in the end, and I remember it because way back I probably did that number when I auditioned unsuccessfully for the role of Mozart in the film of Amadeus for Milos Forman. So I went in there 7 times. I read with every actor in British Equity and failed conspicuously to get the job in the end. But it was very interesting.
That's my favourite movie of all time. Obviously, if you'd got the gig, it would have been even more.
Yes, exactly.
I'd have loved it even more.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. But I thought Tom Hulce, who I subsequently worked with, did a fantastic job. But it was interesting. So I certainly knew what she was going through. There's a process that has to go on, I think, before everybody knows that this big leap in the dark can be made with some degree of confidence. When we made Thor a few years ago, I remember saying to Kevin Feige at Marvel that as good as the script is, and of course, because you could, of course, you'll be able to cast the part. There will be some great big lad who's perfectly good. But if it's not the perfect piece of casting, this film with its difficult tone, just like Cinderella with a difficult, challenging tone here, it won't work unless it's totally and specifically crafted around someone who responds to that script and who brings something to it as well, because it's a very fine and delicate quality that's required. In both cases, even paradoxically, with Thor as a great big butch lad, nevertheless, Chris Hemsworth's subtle performance made the difference to that movie.
Right. So we need to play a clip. So I think we've got a lot of the major cast here. So we have the Ugly Sisters, and we have Kate Blanchett, and we have Cinderella. So just tell us who are playing these roles, who's in the cast, and then we'll hear a bit from the film.
So we have, indeed, those you've mentioned. Helena Bonham Carter plays the fairy godmother. Derek Jacobi plays the king. Stellan Skarsgård plays the Grand Duke, and they variously do their thing.
Okay, so but this is where Kate Blanchett is here with the sisters, and this is where they're naming Cinderella.
Ah, well, there you go. You have the advantage.
That was the crucial piece of information that you didn't pass on to 6 minutes.
I think it was clear. But you'll catch up, Ken. It's all right, Karen. So here's a clip from Cinderella.
I thought breakfast was ready.
Oh, it is, madam. I'm only mending the fire.
Oh, future, can we not be called until the work is done?
As you wish.
Ella, what's that on your face?
Madam? It's ash from the fireplace.
Do clean yourself up.
You'll get cinders in our tea. I've got a new name for her. Cinderwench. I didn't bear to look so dirty. Oh, dirty Ella. Cinderella. That's what we'll call you.
Oh, girls, you're too clever. Who's this for? Is there someone we've forgotten?
It's my place.
Oh, it seems too much to expect you to prepare breakfast, serve it, and still sit with us. Wouldn't you prefer to eat when all the work is done, Ella? Or should I say Cinderella?
What a great laugh.
That's a great laugh, isn't it?
When Cinderella says, "As you wish," at that point, I suddenly, it's a little bit of Princess Bride coming in, because that happens all the way through, and I love that, and I love that movie.
Well,
You sat there with a big smile on your face there, Ken.
yeah. Well,
Again.
we were just talking about voices again. You think I'm thinking, God, this plays really well on the radio, and this is partly because Kate Blanchett has this sort of musicality. The girls, Sophie McShearer and Holiday Granger, who play the two stepsisters, and Lily herself. And I don't know. I was also aware, as you listen to a scene like that, that it's so. It's a scene that many people will recognise, and one of the things that I found exciting, not intimidating about this, is when at the first preview of this film about a year ago, with a room full of kids as well as adults, was seeing the lights go down and realising that from the 5-year-olds to the 85-year-olds, every single person knew what was going to happen next. Highly unusual. Half the time you're trying to explain a tone and a world and everything, but here it was how it happened next that was going to be the difference between it, whether it was an enjoyable experience or not. And I was also noticing that this sort of ritual of needing to tell these tales again is something that people, I think, really respond to. So it's funny to think about working with material that children so young, can recognise.
When you say the first preview of the film was about a year ago,
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an extraordinarily long time. I mean, this is something, therefore, that you made. You were doing the shooting.
I was shooting in the autumn of 2013. I mean, any film on this scale, in my limited experience anyway, is 2 years of your life for sure. And in this case, post-production, we didn't do any additional shooting on this film, by the way, which is quite unusual. But the process, the long, slow process of refining. So, for instance, the first assembly of this film was maybe 2 hours, 40 minutes. So first job is, how do I get 40 minutes out of the movie? It feels like a movie a lot of kids will see shouldn't be over 2 hours. And to do that well, rather than just making great excisions, is a slow process. And then, we did need to sort of see what an initial reaction was. Was it too grown up? Was it too childlike? What were we trying to get? And what were the kids were telling us and listening?
Do you find that process helpful, and do you find it constructive? Because I know a lot of people sort of rail against it, but of course it's as old as cinema itself. I was reading a wonderful article about Buster Keaton comedies being tried out with audiences who actually had knobs on their chairs that they could turn it up at the scenes that they enjoyed and turn it down as they didn't, and he would therefore judge which scenes were funny, which scenes were working. Do you find it is a helpful process to test it?
I think the key is it's helpful, but it's not one that you should be led by. But there are these examples. Casablanca, way back, shot for 20 days. They did a preview. They learned something, and they then shot for 2 more days and shot the scene at the end at the airport. So if you like Casablanca, you could argue the preview process was helpful for that movie. It depends on whether you then try, as a result of information, to make every kind of movie for everybody in that audience, because it will still represent quite a lot of disparate opinions, which any piece of work will receive. So I think you look in broad terms for certainly things like comedy. What makes people
does the joke
laugh.
work?
Yeah, exactly right. And then I think you respond. The biggest help of a preview is to sit in the room for the first time. If you've been in an editing room with maybe just you and an editor for 3-4 months, and then you've maybe played it to a couple of friends, or you've shared it with producers in the studio first, of course, and then to actually put it in a room where it's packed, you start seeing and hearing the movie in a different way for the very first time. And if they said nothing and made no reaction, you would see the movie differently, because suddenly your whole insides have changed. And it isn't just anxiety or apprehension. You're just aware. Frankly, sometimes in the silences, I can hear when an audience is bored. There's a silence that says that they're not connecting.
I love your story about the scene that the little girl liked where Cinderella gives a glass of milk, because You spent a lot of money on this movie. Well, the studio did. That must be about the cheapest scene. But of all the stuff,
I like the milk.
of all the scenes that it's not the huge coach transformation. It's not the ball, which is an astonishing sequence with hundreds of people. It was a scene with a glass of milk.
There you go. It's lovely milk, though. It was lovely milk. We spent a lot of money on that. I think it's one of the things that struck me about the film was that in that very ball sequence to which you refer, in another anecdotal moment. I was talking to someone the other day and the ball sequence came up and a number of people graciously said, they love the scale of it, the spectacle, the live candles and the chandeliers and the dancing and all the rest of it and all of these hundreds and hundreds of extras and the camera work and the splendor. And this woman came up to me and said, I loved that ballroom sequence. My favorite thing was his hand on the small of her back, which is an insert shot. I mean, I didn't need to be in a studio for that. We could have shot that in here. And so suddenly the ballroom sequence for her was only about that hand on the small of the back and an intake of breath.
I wonder if there's if I was listening to the few clips from the Eclipse commentary right at the beginning of the show, and Nicky's comments and all that kind of stuff, because it was this huge deal this morning, and there was a moment on the TV where Brian Cox and Dara O'Brien were describing what was happening, and as it got to the maximum point, totality, Brian Cox said something like, this is it, this is the eclipse moment. And there's a scene you'll see where I'm going now. There's a scene in your movie which
we're all eager.
It's the Cinderella moment where Helena Bonham Carter, she's doing the you shall go to the ball bit, granting the wish. And that's sort of the bit that you absolutely had to get completely nailed.
Well, I think there are a number of moments like that, and I think the callback, which is a differently vivid moment, is when just before that, Kate Blanchett has ripped the dress of Cinderella and says with such viciousness, "You shall not go to the ball." And we, from that moment, interestingly, in the original 1950 animated classic, it's a 72-minute movie. There's tons of songs, there's tons of cat and mouse action, and the story could be confined to maybe 15, 20 minutes, and sort of is. But in that 15, 20 minutes, in that 72 minutes total running time, they spend an inordinate amount of time relative to what everything else they do on the very moment of which you speak. Both the nadir, which is I don't believe anymore, the crisis of faith, I no longer believe, I don't believe in fairy tales, I don't believe in fairy godmothers. And they in that 1950 film we see her weeping and weeping and weeping. The stepmother says that horrible line, and then Helena comes in this case to have that payback after some fun with the shoes and the transformation and everything that in a story like this. Again, back to that preview, I could feel people leaning forward at these key moments, at these moments that are somehow in the culture, these transformation moments, this desire that she will be all right, it'll be all right, and then she'll still get back before midnight strikes. And the key to trying to get it right was just to be as honest as we could, back to what we were talking about earlier, trying to have this sincerity that is, without naivety, and does have a twinkle in its eye, both from Helena's performance and indeed from Lily's.
Did it worry you at all? I mean, one of the things with something like Cinderella is that if it works, it will be something that will be watched again and again and again and again. People will watch it and they'll show it to their kids, because obviously we've all grown up with the animation. There are certain films that we all know. And because it's such an iconic story, because, as you said, everyone has read it, everyone has watched a version of it, is there part of you when you're making the film thinking, I'm not just making this for now, I'm making this for 5 years, 10 years hence, and how do I prevent it from aging? I mean, it is a timeless tale, and it's...
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that I in a way, I answered it unconsciously. I don't think you can feel that during, because I think you get too worried about sort of... You're running ahead of yourself. You just got to be in the moment. But unconsciously, I believe that... questions that I had up front and people asked me about, well, could it be modern? Could it be set in 21st century London or Brooklyn or whatever? And my instinct was that it would date quickly if that were the case. Just in terms of technology, week by week, new devices and platforms and things spring up that mean everything that you would include in a modern version would, I think, be quickly out of date. Hence the reason to go back to what you might call a timeless period, a little blur of the 19th and 18th centuries, a world where you might expect fairy tales in our longer imaginations to exist, and a period and dresses and things that you might sort of expect to be in this kind of story, and that if visually splendid, would allow you some room for a central message, which is that difficult thing to achieve, simple, novel without being simplistic.
What was the hardest scene to film? What was the thing that was the most trouble?
The ballroom sequence, not
Just
so much
because of logistically.
logistics, but also, it was as important to get all the dances right as it was to get that hand on the small of the back. Ahead of that, the hardest things to conceive were transformations that particularly something I loved doing, but the run back from the ball once the stroke of midnight strikes was a sequence shot over the entire course of the shooting period of the movie of 4 or 5 months. So you're always doing bits of it. Here's a bit of Cinderella in the garden, and now here's a mouse here, and now he has a goose, and 3 weeks later we're doing the coachman landing on the hay, and then we're going to do the conversion with the big ears, and then we do some green screen, then some are created in the computer. All of that had to be pre-visualized, put together, and then of course you want to keep a little eye and ear open in case you have a better idea, and the shooting of it starts to tell you how it might be even better. So that keeping a strong idea of how it should be, planning it, and still being open to a better idea, that's a challenge.
Is there anything that strikes you as strange about the fact that you have turned into a director who is completely at home with special effects, that you have made effectively big special effects movies? When you look back at how you began, it's not what everybody would have imagined was going to happen.
It is unusual, yes, to be and as a fairly sort of prehistoric creature in relation to the digital and modern world.
But you didn't have a mobile phone for ages.
For a long time, yeah, and I still, I'm not a social media boy, and don't I keep my as it were technical savvy exclusively for work on films, and I'm very glad to have it because I do feel as though I know a little bit more about what's going on because of it.
Can you set the record straight? You might think you've done this already, but on the subject of Lily James's waist, which has come up on a fairly that maybe she's been made to look too thin. Obviously, it's an important area just to get the facts right. So what's the truth?
No photoshopping, no adjustment. Of course, it's worn by all the girls who all have slim waists, or slim in any case, and all wear corsets. In the case of Lily's waist, she has a particularly slim waist, and in relation to the corset, beautifully designed by Sandy Powell, there is also an optical illusion to do with the width of the shoulders, the width of the bodice, and the width of the skirt. And indeed, in some pictures that have pointed to this, there's the additional help of shadowing. There is no suggestion in the picture at all, quite the opposite of the promotion of a negative body image, and there is at no point was there any kind of sense of kind of unhealthiness with Lily herself then, before, or since.
Sure, and Cinderella, I think parents will go and they'll be extremely pleased with the way Cinderella is portrayed. That she is, although she has all these terrible people around her, she sort of seems in control, and that idea of having courage and being kind is not a bad maxim to have.
I think so, and I think that I've been thrilled not only because reactions from parents have endorsed that it isn't preset. However, she doesn't come across as saintly. She evolves during the course of the movie. All the characters do, and that's something I think I'm very proud of in the picture. But she wears this lightly. She simply she does it with a sense of fun, and she earns it. And more importantly for me, kids are coming out and loving her for that, and not finding they're being spoken to or preached to.
I just want to ask you about Richard III before you go, because they've dug him up.
The real Richard.
The real.
He's not on this afternoon, is he?
No, he's not.
He's after the news and sport. Yeah.
Okay.
But they are
very rattly. Be aware of that.
But they're gonna, he was buried once, and now he's going to be buried again. I just sort of think you should be in charge of that.
Of the reburial.
Of the reburial.
Where's he going, or where do you think he should go?
He's probably going to Westminster Abbey or something.
Seems sensible, doesn't it?
But I think that isn't it legal? Doesn't he have to go to work?
I think so. Otherwise, it's terribly messy. Also, he made a hell of a mess in that car park in Leicester, didn't he?
Chris Payne on via social media. Any news on Macbeth as directed by Scorsese? The stage production in 2013 was quite incredible. A lot of conversation as to whether this is going to happen. What can you tell us, Ken Branagh?
We're practically there with this happening. We will remount the production, and all things being well, Mr. Scorsese will direct a film version of that production. The fingers are hovering above pieces of paper. We've been talking about it. Everybody wants to do it, and it's just a question of schedule. So I'm very, 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 very hopeful it's going to happen.
How long would it take to do?
Again, that's under consideration in terms of exactly what we do. Because to some extent, the invitation is for the maestro to do what he will with this, to be very impressionistic with it and very abstract. So it's really a bit how long's a piece of string until we sit down. He's currently in Taiwan making silence. So and because of that distance, sometimes that's the nature of the communication as well.
But your feeling is it's going to happen probably.
If I was a betting man, I'd say we're in great shape. Yeah.
That would be something to look forward to.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
Ken Branagh, Martin Scorsese, Macbeth.
Well, Scorsese, Shakespeare. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
And that apart, Ken, what do we see you in next?
Wallander. I've just finished shooting the final 3 Wallander films. As people may know, is a Swedish detective that plays on BBC One. We shoot the shows in Sweden, although one of these last 3 was shot in South Africa, based on a novel called The White Lioness. And the final 2 films of this entire sort of 12-film series of these English Wallanders that covers all of the books that were written about Mankell and about Wallander and some short stories by Henning Mankell. The last 2 cover the very brilliant novel that he finished this story with, The Troubled Man. And it's really a sensational novel, and I hope the films are going to be special.
And on the subject of TV, you've chosen a TV movie of the week, which we'll get to Mark's selection later. But have you chosen one?
Yes, I have, yeah. Edward Scissorhands is what...
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Do you have the screening details, Ken?
I don't have
See,
the
he comes
screening
in
details
unprepared.
with
See,
me.
that's the difference in him and me. I could have told you when it was on.
Hang on.
They didn't give them to me.
It's
a fantastic picture.
4:50 in the afternoon on Sunday.
That's what I was going to say. It's 4:50, on whatever Simon just said.
That's right.
It is, but it is again, that's wonderful and timeless, and has managed to absolutely not age at all.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely
and heartbreaking.
brilliant. And so unusual, visually staggeringly unusual, and to see an actor sort of transform themselves like that, like Mr. Depp in that, it's just it was great. I thought it was really groundbreaking, and as you say, stays fantastic. But it's a good week for movies. Am I allowed to know what you've chosen, or you have to do this at a special time?
I have to look at the list. I haven't. You're ahead of the game. You see,
between you and me, Mark.
It's the preparation, Ken.
See, Brady, we just kind of make it up as we go along.
I'm very pleased to see that.
So 2 things to say: Cinderella is out next week, and the other thing to say is Richard III's been buried in Leicester Cathedral. That's where he is.
Oh, then you can do that. That's fine.
That seems very good. They get the car parking space back, and everybody's happy.
Ken Branagh, we appreciate you coming in as ever. Thank you very much indeed. And do feel free to take your chocolate finger treat.
I'm going to take my one finger surprise out of its open wrapper.
Ken Branagh, thank you. It's 5 Live, 2:35.